Last night I warned against the new health fascism. Today, another serious example of how the virus panic is tightening controls over us all. We are told we must use the QR code when we're going to, a restaurant or a shop, for our own good, so the contact tracers can find and can fine you and warn you if there's a virus infection there. They need to track you. Hello, got to get a test. Except we now know Western Australia police have been using QR codes there to find people involved in serious crimes. The WA Premier says the police refuse to stop doing that, so the WA Parliament is passing laws to make them stop. Now, some other states, though, do not have those laws. Victoria, for instance, says, don't worry, police there haven't even asked us for the data anyway. Well, joining me is John Roskam, head of the libertarian think tank, the Institute of Public Affairs. John, it's always great to catch up with you, mate. Using the QR code, of course, it's for our own good, and using it also to help catch violent crooks is also for our own good. What's the problem?
Well, the problem is, Andrew, that this app was made mandatory in Western Australia. Last year, the Premier said it will not be used for any other purpose. People can trust it. The Health Minister said exactly the same thing. He said we should trust the government, we should give them our details so that contact tracers, exactly as you said, can find us if they need to. Now, the police, as you mentioned, have now admitted that they have used the app to track down an alleged murderer, someone guilty of assault, and the police have not apologised. The police have said, we will use every means at our disposal to track down people who breach the safety of West Australians. And then the Chief Commissioner has the gall to say, this was in the fine print, and I accept that people don't always read the fine print. That is scandalous, and that's why people don't trust the government.
Yeah, but what's wrong with them wanting to catch a murderer? We all want murderers caught, don't we?
Well, then we can put a microchip behind our ears, Andrew, and give the government all of our information. And the trouble is that sounds like a conspiracy theorist, but there are limits to what the government should know about us. The government should not mislead Australians. If the government was to say, we will track every single one of your movements and we will release the information as they have been doing in other circumstances, not just to the police, but to the Australian Taxation Office, to local councils as they've been doing, then for me, that's no longer a free society. So the application has been used something like 245 million times in Western Australia since it was introduced. That's 245 million things the government knows about us. That's not my definition of freedom, and the coronavirus cannot and should not erode our freedoms in this way.
Well, you dream on, because I think virus passports are next, John, don't you think?
Well, they are, and that's very dangerous too. We found out today also that the WA police are not just using the COVID QR app, they are also accessing information from West Australians and other Australians entering in and out of Western Australia that was designed to capture information about COVID risks. They are now using that for all of their information gathering purposes as well. There's reasons why we don't give the government access to our phones, to our computers, to the intimate daily details of our lives, because it's going to be misused. And when the government says they're not going to misuse it, you can pretty much be sure they will.
A lot of these techniques remind me of China's increasing social media controls as well, and all the street cameras it has and all the ways it has of tracking people, social credit system now. You break a law, you don't, what it says is a law breaking. You can't book a holiday, for instance. But talking about China and losing freedom, terrible news today for people like me who've lived in Hong Kong, love Hong Kong, or loved it, past tense. Another shocking attack on its free speech now that China has taken over and is tightening the screws there, John. Police have already arrested Jimmy Lai, of course, owner of Hong Kong's second biggest media outlets, a guest on the show twice last year. Today, 500 police raided his Apple Daily newspaper, searched journalist desks, arrested 4 executives, plus the chief editor, for allegedly colluding with the foreign powers and endangering national security under their obscene new China-inspired laws by allegedly publishing appeals to the world to help punish Chinese officials for taking democracy away from Hong Kong. What do you make of it?
Well, Andrew, I was lucky enough to actually be at the offices of the Apple Daily a few years ago when Hong Kong was still a democracy, and it was a vibrant, exciting newsroom. Australians can access the Apple Daily website freely here in Australia in English, and it's an important news outlet for freedoms. And as you said today, 500 police took computers, took personal effects of journalists. And then, again, we were just talking about what politicians do. Carrie Lam then comes out and says, but we still believe in Hong Kong in freedom of speech. But what these journalists have been doing has got nothing to do with news coverage. Now, these are the dangers, and we don't have to look very far from Perth, from this country, to see what could well happen when we don't call out these things and when we don't call out for our freedoms. And I think every Australian has to be supporting Apple Daily and what they're trying to do.
I find it so profoundly shocking. When I lived in Hong Kong, it was a place of free speech. That's why we had an office there, a newspaper office, because we knew free speech existed in Hong Kong. In my lifetime, it has been snuffed out like that. And the world now, they may issue little condemnations, but nothing is being done. China's too big. What China's doing to Hong Kong, it would want to do to the whole world. And to me, this is starting to feel like the 1930s when the world watched as the Nazis grew stronger. John Roskam, thank you so much for your time.
Or 1984, Andrew.